So great. Welcome everyone to our brand new 2023 Plauti product update, unleashing the power of AI in Salesforce with ChatGPT. As always, it's fantastic to have you all here, and we're excited to showcase our brand new updates on our product roster. So let's dive into today's agenda. As tradition, a bit about us, of course, Nicole is speaking here, account executive with Plauti, and today, again, it's a steady presence for this webinar series, showcasing the most recent products update, Ruben, product owner and the mastermind of our high data quality solutions. And we are Plauti, generating data happiness since 2012. Plauti is the company behind the Plauti Data Management Suite, Duplicate Check, Record Validation, and Data Action Platform. Most of you knows us from being the company behind Duplicate Check, our most known solutions for data quality, which helps you to find, merge, and prevent duplicates from any point of entry and with autopilot fashion. We offer the best flexibility in the market on duplicate management with 3 different processing options to manage your bulk legacy cleanup and merging. And it's a 100% native solution in your Salesforce environment with a lot of advantages. So not only on the adoption side, because it's faster, of course, but also on the customization and implementation of capabilities. And more, we have record validation, which is our solutions to validate and format email addresses, physical addresses, and phone number. With record validation, you can have data not just bring you confidence to a higher level, but also achieve the best targeting and segmenting for mass targeting campaign. And of course, help rep operations people to reach effectively to your prospects with valid information. Our most recent Salesforce toolkit, Data Action Platform, it's a mass action tool enabler. So it enriches the Salesforce platform with the ability to create power users. Data Action Platform provides you with actions, data actions that can be run via different execution methods granted by these power users. And all the activities are tracked within the platform in a form of an audit log for monitoring and analytic purposes. And of course, last but not the least, we have Plauti Data Management, our complete management solution, which enables your Salesforce to be your single and complete source of truth by deduplicating, validating, consolidating, and standardizing records, either custom or standard records in your CRM. On top of that, Plauti Data Management offers a package of a tailored service in support of adoption, implementation, and customization for your current data management challenges. So you can have a direct support channel to rely on. And all Plauti solutions, of course, are force.com native. We provide Salesforce safety peace of mind by sharing the same strong security logic and processes, provide a more efficient implementation and full integrations with your Salesforce business logic, right? We're based in Europe, in Arnhem and in Lisbon. But of course, we are delivering all over the world. So we are covering over 20 industries and resolving data quality challenges to enable our partners, Salesforce single source of truth, with power users such as admins and Salesforce developers, together with the end users in a concerted effort to boost, of course, to the maximum the Salesforce confidence and the outcome for the data-driven activities to drive more revenues, of course. But yeah, this is a quick roundup of our customers, and there's many, many more, of course, joining our family. But as of today's agenda, we're aiming to cover our new product updates, polls, and your questions in the following 45 to 50 minutes. And as you probably check from the email campaign, we're going to cover Duplicate Check most recent updates, new functional UI and capabilities to edit your scheduled job with the best practical settings. Passing to record validation, we are going to provide you with a new feature that allows validation job temporary files to either remain in the US or EU server. And lastly, we are going to, of course, dig deeper into the new data action from a data action platform, which is the integration with ChatGPT. So let's dive into it. So what is new? Well, the biggest new release is, of course, our new action that enables you to work with the OpenAI's ChatGPT. This works with your paid version of the service where via API key, you can connect it with the data action platform and enables your source of assisted tools and solutions for your data enrichment, qualitative evaluations, and much more. And we're going to cover this in Ruben's demo time. And naturally, this is something that Plauti and Salesforce are working together in generating a more boosted confidence and trust to artificial intelligence, considering, of course, the endless possibilities provided by the complex logic and calculations of this new feature. And naturally, bringing trust to AI starts with clean data. And not just for a major efficiency of prompts and answer, but especially because clean data provides a true AI fuel. So to avoid the garbage in, garbage out paradigm, we have to, of course, trust our efforts toward our main data quality applications, starting, of course, with duplicate check. And here you can see already our duplicate check job overall results, new UI. You have, for example, more functionalities that allow power and end users alike to always keep your database clean from any Salesforce Lightning page. They can, of course, have access to their featured functions and be able to group their results and perform better data quality all over the day. Another more functional, familiar feature is, of course, our new design for the job overview, but the new feature includes the editing of scheduled jobs. So as simple as identifying information you want to edit from our prompt of job creations, you can edit your features, for example, by adding new scenario, adding fields, filters, changing, of course, the comparison methods between records, or even also changing the processing option to choose a more prompt screen, more prompt performance option like Plauti Cloud, for example. And of course, last but not the least, as you can see here, we are just talking about this, right? So you can choose, for example, to change your processing option. The information are updated on the fly, and therefore you're ready to go. And last but not the least, as I was saying, to meet our customer requirements, we also add new features released via record validation, right? So now you can control where the data persists during the validation process with the possibility to choose either a US server or a EU server. And this is as an effort to boost the compliance with local government regulations as a further layer of security into your data quality activities. And now, enough with me and with slides and videos. I will leave the floor to Ruben so he can showcase us the new feature of Data Action Platform. Take it away, Ruben.
Yeah, thanks, Nicola. Let me first share my screen, get things going. So hi, everyone. It's good to see so many familiar names in the attendees list. I have the pleasure of showing you a little demo for Data Action Platform for a really exciting new feature, which we introduced in our latest release, which is now a week ago. Our production release was last Monday or a week before. And yeah, we introduced an implementation with ChatGPT. And this opens up a ton of possibilities in Salesforce to be able to leverage the powers of a large language model to interpret situations, interpret text, and make decisions for us. And for today, I've prepared two use cases. The first one is how normal day-to-day end users can make use of the Ask ChatGPT action in Salesforce by starting an action on the selection of records and asking ChatGPT basically whatever they want, and they can use record data in their prompt. The response can then be stored in the Salesforce field, which opens up a ton of possibilities. But the real exciting stuff is in automation. And I prepared a use case in which we are going to do a couple of things with cases. And I'm not going there right now, but yeah, I think it's really exciting what an implementation of OpenAI can do in the Salesforce implementation. So we're really excited about that and looking forward to show you what we can do there. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. We will handle them at the end of each use case. If there is a specific question about the use case themselves, or at the end of the webinar, we are able to answer questions as well. So please do not hesitate to ask your questions. All right. So first use case. So this is a use case how you could decide to allow your end users to interact with ChatGPT using Data Action Platform. And as you know, Data Action Platform is a tool that consists out of many data actions, which you can then allocate to your end users. And in that way, you can give them certain tools that are not available in a standard Salesforce implementation to make their life easier and to work with their data in a way they are not be able to work with their data before. And one of the new actions that we have is, of course, Ask ChatGPT, which can be invoked from the action launcher. And only users that you grant access to this action are, of course, able to work with it. And what we're going to do, we're going to open up Salesforce, and we're going to write a prompt to enrich an account or a selection of accounts with some useful information. And we're also going to ask ChatGPT for a fun fact about the account. And we're doing that because maybe as a salesperson, you can use this information, which you can store in a record, maybe in your conversations, and to get more of context and idea about the account that you're working with at that time. So let's see what that looks like in Salesforce. So I'm now in my demo environment, and I'm going to open up the account object over here. And I'm going to select the first account here. I'm now doing this on one account, but we can also do this on a selection of accounts if that is something that you'd like to do. And on the top right side in the list view, we have the action launcher, which is, of course, from Data Action Platform. And in the action launcher, I can see all the actions that are assigned to my profile or to my user. And in this case, since I'm the Salesforce administrator, I have access to all the actions. And as you can see, the actions that we started with are, for example, classic mass update, mass delete. We can do find and replace. We can mass create tasks. So yeah, basically Data Action Platform is it's a toolbox with all these different micro applications, which are very useful in a Salesforce environment. And the new one that we have is Ask ChatGPT, and that's the one I'm going to open. And the action itself is very simple, actually, but simple is good. So what we request from the user is a prompt, and the user can then choose where to store the response of ChatGPT. So I've already written a prompt here, which I'm going to copy and paste so that I don't have to type it. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to ask. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT, please give me a brief information, a maximum of 2 alineas about name, which is the account name from billing city, to give it more context. That is useful for a salesperson. Also share a fun fact about the company and use headers in your response. So I now copy and pasted this, but I can also use our field variable button here, in which I can look up fields that are part of the account. We can also use fields of related records, which is really nice if that's something that you want to do. That's really easily doable by entering the field variable button here. Then I only have to decide where I want to store the response, and I'm going to use the account description. I'm going to click next, which gets me to the confirmation page. So it's basically a summary of what I'm about to do, and I can simply hit start. Now the action will make a call to OpenAI with my prompt, and it will store the response in the account description field. Of course, you can also create a dedicated custom field for this if you want to. And as you can see at the bottom here, we got some general information about AO Fox Memorial Hospital, located in wherever. And at the end, it closes off with a fun fact about the hospital, which I can maybe use in my conversations with this client. So yeah, just an example of how you can grant end users access to a tool like this, in which they can use record information to get nice information from ChatGPT and store it in the record themselves for reference. One of the other prompts that could be nice, if I take Bellevue Hospital, I'm going to the action launcher, and I'm going to choose Ask ChatGPT. The prompt could be, for example, please tell me how account name from billing city could benefit from Plautis duplicate check application to improve the quality of their data in the Salesforce CRM, which is, of course, useful information to have in the record. I can send the prompt, and the response will be stored in the account description field. And then again, the result field can be any custom object, custom field, of your choice. And when it's finished and I've opened up Bellevue Hospital, then you can see that it gives me a nice analysis of Bellevue Hospital and why they would need a tool like duplicate check from Plauti, which of course is a super well ID. Yeah, so simple use case, how you could utilize this action. It can be really good for your users to get access to a tool like this. But the real fun is, of course, in automation. Are there already questions coming in, Nicola?
Yes, I was about to answer one coming from Sarah. She's writing, you included in the prompt the account name and some information about the location, but you did not specify the account record ID. How did it know which record to update?
Yeah, that's a good question. So by using Data Action Platform, we can execute an action in many different ways. And we can do it from a list view, for example. So you can simply select the checkboxes for which you want to start an action for example, mass update or mass delete or any custom action that you create. So this selection of records that you want to process happens here by selecting the checkboxes. Another execution method that we have is the DAP job. And in the DAP job, you can run a batch process on any number of records by setting up filters, for example. But what you could do, you could run a prompt on your entire account database, and for every account in your database, then add some general information about that company in a dedicated field. So you can enrich your accounts with information you decide on yourself by building a really nice prompt. I hope that answers your question.
And from Niels over the chat box, we have simple comments saying like a 32K characters and then break off. Is this
Yes. Indeed, there is a maximum number of characters we can put in the prompt, and the prompt input also takes that into account, so you can never send too much information in the prompt. And also the response of ChatGPT, we limit it to a large text area. ChatGPT itself has a maximum response as well, but that's all dealt with in implementation on our side, so nothing to worry about that.
And then Boria, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, previously asked, like, can we use our own OpenAI API key to make calls? And then she said, like, I say this because of GDPR.
Yeah, most definitely. So let me quickly show you that. When you go to the DAP setup and the action library, you can see all of the actions that are in our library and all the macros that we create based on existing actions. And at the top, we can find Ask ChatGPT, and this is where you configure the ChatGPT action. And implementation is really simple. You simply need to paste your OpenAI API key, which is now visible for the entire world, which probably is not a super good idea. But we'll refresh the API token after the webinar. So yeah, basically the only input we need is that API key, right? We can also set a temperature. So basically we can decide how much creativity we allow ChatGPT to have in its answering. It can be very strict or it can be a bit more open. So those are the things that we can set. Also, we have a decision in utilizing GPT 3.5 or 4.0 at the moment. So that's really nice.
Another couple of questions. We have one from Stefan. It says, like, is it also using data from your own Salesforce organization?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't.
Is it also using data from your own Salesforce organization? I believe that Stefan means how ChatGPT is accessing the information based on the variables as well.
Yeah, so depending on how you write the prompt, you can either choose to include record information, which sometimes makes a lot of sense, of course. And then, of course, the data is used. We have a slide about data privacy as well, which we can go into at a later point. But in a nutshell, data privacy is guaranteed by OpenAI, and the data that is sent over by using the API is never used for training the model. So OpenAI guarantees privacy when working with their API.
Yeah, we see like another question from Daniel, more or less in on the same tone, right? So regarding ChatGPT function, does our Salesforce data are exposed and trained outside of Salesforce infrastructure? So in that case, again, like it's something that we can it's something that we can cover. We can also share probably this afterwards, maybe with the recording as a screenshot on how OpenAI actually protects the data and yeah, and we can also redirect the link as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you're interested in the nitty-gritty details, it's a good idea to check out the website of OpenAI/API data privacy, and they really go in depth on how they guarantee data privacy and how they work with your data, how they persist it, and why. So if you're interested in that, go check that out, because of course that's a really important part and something to consider if you are going to implement ChatGPT in your Salesforce environment. But these three things are the most important. So data is not used at any point to train the model unless you explicitly opt in. So by default, you're opt out. OpenAI is compliant with all these privacy regulations that are out there, and data is retained for up to 30 days for the sole purpose of monitoring abusive usage. And after 30 days, data is permanently deleted, and you can send them a request to not persist data at any point. And they're very flexible with that. So if that is something that you wish, then you can communicate with OpenAI, and they can make sure that the 0-day retention is enabled.
And we have one last question from Sarah. She said, like, can you have it record the response to a related record, like a task description on each account for an initial call with prospect, for example?
Yeah, so that is a good question. So when you use our tool in the action launcher with our existing user interface, we can only choose a result field that is part of the object you're starting an action for. However, there are many different ways in which you can utilize our implementation. You can also do it in flows, for example. You can also do it via Apex. We have a slide about that in a second as well, which of course is much more flexible and allows you to implement the action and the response in many different ways. So instead of storing something in the record that you're working with from the object that you're sending the prompt from, instead of that, we can, for example, create tasks in related records. We can create notes. Well, the possibilities are endless, because in Apex, we can do whatever we want. So there's an interesting blog that we wrote about this, different ways of utilizing this tool. So that's definitely also something to check out. I'm sure that Nicola will look it up and share it in the chat. There's also indeed some use cases on how to process the GPT response in a more creative way than storing the text in the field. Nicola, good idea to move forward to the second use case? Or
you want to launch a poll?
Oh, sure, we have polls. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go for that.
Yeah, so it's poll time. Like, so as we were discussing at the beginning of our webinar, like AI trust is growing bigger, of course, and we want to know actually how often do you currently utilize solutions like ChatGPT, right, to simplify your workload. So what we want to know is how often you use it. So not at all, occasionally, quite often, or all the time. And of course, you can also keep a quick trivia for yourself, also to finding out the quotes for each of of the answers. In the meantime, we can quickly answer also to Niels, as is mentioning in the chat. Einstein GPT cannot do this kind of actions. I believe that Einstein GPT is more limited within functions in Salesforce, while ChatGPT has a different sources, like, for example, website and the open web. I don't know, Ruben, you want to add a little bit more about this?
Yeah, it's a good question indeed. Einstein GPT and Salesforce is heavily invested in implementing AI capabilities as well, and they have some really awesome use cases in which they will bring it out in the coming time. I think if you want to compare it, Salesforce is really bringing you solutions that are finished, so they are plug and play. And how I see our implementation is that you can implement OpenAI in your own creative way, your own processes, and it's much more open and flexible in terms of implementation. And I have some awesome examples for that in a second.
All right. As we ended our poll, we see a majority of people saying that they usually occasionally, followed immediately by not at all. So there's not that many user of OpenAI or artificial intelligence here. Then we have like a big chunk of people that are saying like they use it quite often. And then of course we have also people that cannot renounce to their ChatGPT prompt probably daily. And that we would like to know also if you can drop like a comment in the chat box. In the meantime, I can hand it over to you again, Ruben, so we can go ahead with the next use case.
Yeah, let's go along with the fun stuff. So having ChatGPT for end users is of course fun and can be very valuable if you choose to grant that to your users. But the true value lies in automation and to let ChatGPT be part of your flows, your workflows, making decisions that probably it can do better than a human and in real time. So the possibilities here are endless, and I've created a use case for the case object. So I've configured data action platform in combination with flows to trigger prompts on record insert. So when a record, in this case a case, is inserted into Salesforce, we kick off data action platform with the ChatGPT action to, for example, summarize a case using bullet points. So it's going to take a look at the subject and the description of a case. It's going to summarize it and put the summary in a custom field that I have on the page layout. I'm going to ask it to interpret the case and to decide what department in my Salesforce environment is best suitable for answering that specific question. I'm going to show you the exact prompts that I'm using for that. It is really valuable. There is also a dedicated video for specifically this subject, which Nicola can share. If you're interested in case assignment done by ChatGPT, then definitely check that out. I'm asking it to decide the case priority based on a prompt and storing the answer in a pick list, and I'm limiting ChatGPT to answering or to give an answer that is compliant with the options in my close-off select list. That's really interesting. And I'm asking it to see if the case that's coming in is potentially a spam message. And if we take a look at the capabilities of a large language model and how good it is, I think AI is perfectly capable of making these decisions and doing these tasks far better than any other product or any human, for that matter, to do a task like this. And let me first show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to show you how you can configure it. And it's actually really simple. You can do it in a couple of minutes, so that's really cool. So let's open up my case object, and I've already configured exactly what I've just showed you in the slide. I'm first going to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to show you how to configure it. So I'm going to create a new case, and I have a case in my copy and paste list. So I'm going to add the description here by copying it. So what I'm doing, I'm putting in a really long case to see the summary capabilities of OpenAI. And we're going to call this as a subject question. So I am not setting priority. I have to set the case origin because it's a mandatory field. And I'm going to save this case. Now, after saving, a flow is now kicking off that is sending prompts automatically to OpenAI via our implementation. And it is going to fill out these fields on the right side. And as you can see, they are not filled in yet because calling the API of OpenAI, getting the response takes a bit of time. But when I refresh the page now, you can see that in a matter of seconds, it created a perfect summary to begin with based on the subject and description on the right side. It made an educated guess that this case is for sales. So if you see the select list that is behind this, we got sales, financial administration support, other, and customer success. So this is typically a sales case because, for example, it's asking for a demo, it's asking about features and capabilities of a tool. Priority set to medium. I'm going to show you in a second what the prompt behind this is. And it is saying that this is not a potential spam case. And looking at the case, I can say that I agree. So yeah, really powerful tool to get summaries. And we can do this for cases, but of course this logic can be implemented to any object in Salesforce. So that is really cool. So you can summarize tasks if you want to. You can do something with opportunities, whatever object you want to do an AI implementation on. Just to show you another example, I'm going to create another case. So you can see the priority is medium here, but if I open up a case with a higher urgency, so he actually says it's an urgent request. So maybe you can put in a subject urgent as well. And we have to set a case origin. I'm going to save it. So we got the case on the left side, the case analysis on the right side. And I don't want to be too quick with my refresh, but yeah, it's already finished. So we see a really nice case summary. You can see that the department is set to support because this is really a support case. Priority is high because the customer is requesting urgency in a response because there is a problem in production. And we can see that, again, it's not identified as a spam case. So pretty powerful stuff. I have another example of a case which I can add, which is in fact a spammy kind of case in which yeah, we won the lottery. So that's cool. So I'm going to enter that one just to show you that AI is perfectly capable of seeing if something is a spam message, yes or no. So I'm going to wait a few seconds before all the calls are made, and you can see that potential spam case definitely saying yes right now. So yeah, that's I think really nice. Let me show you how you can set this up because it's actually pretty simple. I have a slide for you to give you an idea on where we can implement this. So in Data Action Platform, we have different ways of kicking off an action. We got the dub job, which is a batch process. So you can start a prompt on your entire existing database, enriching records, detecting spam, deciding urgency, assigning records to sales to support based on the interpretation of record information. We can do that on a scheduled basis as well. We can do it via list views, which we saw in the beginning for use case 1, but we can also start it at dynamic related lists. Another option is starting an action from Apex. So we've implemented that Data Action Platform to be able to start actions from Apex. So you can do it by scheduled Apex triggers, if that's interesting to you. And of course, this doesn't limit to using Ask ChatGPT, the new action, but to any action we have in our action library. The last way to start an action or to kick off any action that we have in our library is from flows. And we can kick off an action from any flow type. But for these use cases that I'm showing now, I've started a record I've started an action, from the record triggered flow. I'm going to show you how I can set that up right now. So I'm going to show you how I can summarize a case triggered on insert. So the first thing we have to do, we have to go to the DAP setup. And at the DAP setup, we have the action library. And to, in a flow, reference to an action that we want to execute, we have to create a macro. And a macro in Data Action Platform is a pre-configured action, which generates an API name after we create it. And by using the API name, we can reference to it in Apex or reference to it in a flow. And that's exactly what we want to do. So I can create a new macro on the top right. already copying my prompt, and then we can create a macro based on the Ask ChatGPT action. And we're gonna call it summarize case. And we're gonna look up the case object. Then we can decide on an icon, which will then appear in the action launcher. I'm using the robot icon, of course. Then I click next. Then we can configure the macro. And for summarizing case, I've used this prompt. So please summarize the following case in bullet points. And then I'm using the case subject and case description. And this is also the prompt that I use in the case summary action that we just saw in the demo. And as a result field, I've created a custom field called case summary. Basically, the only thing you have to do, clicking next, you get the summary, and then you can click create, and then it's added to your action library. And if we look it up, you can see it's over here, summarize case, and we got an API name, which I'm going to copy because we are going to need that when building the flow. By default, after you create a macro, it is disabled for all profiles because we don't want by default that it's accessible to anyone right away. So if I go into the assignments of the new macro that we've created, you can see our assignment system. And here we can decide who in Salesforce has access to execute this action. So this gives us control and who has access to what. And therefore you can create the power users that you want to gain the controls that you want at a certain level. So what we can do, we can simply enable it for everything, but I can also make sure that the system administrator is able to execute this from flow, for example, or from job and list. So I can basically make any choice that I want here. We can also do it based on users. So I can also look up my user here and make sure that it's done based on users and not on profiles, because nowadays not everyone is using profiles anymore. So after I grant myself access to the macro, I can start a flow. And the flow that we're going to build is really easy. So it's going to be a record triggered flow. I'm going to click new flow and clicking create. And when we set up a record triggered flow, we first have to define the object. In this case, it's going to be the case object. And I can define the trigger. So do I want to run this flow when the record is created or also while it's updated? Well, in this use case, I want to only trigger this flow while the case is getting created. I'm not setting any entry conditions, but what I do need to do is include an asynchronous path, because if we do a call from a flow, we have to do it asynchronously. We cannot do it synchronously. Clicking done, you can see that we have two paths. We have one synchronous path and one asynchronous path. And due to a limitation / a bug in Salesforce flows, and this is a known issue which they're going to solve, you cannot only run an asynchronous path, you also have to do something in the synchronous path, which doesn't make too much sense. And Salesforce already said they're going to fix that part. So what I did to bypass that limitation is I'm simply updating a dump checkbox that I'm not using for any purpose, but because I'm doing that, the flow will execute. So I have dump checkbox and I'm setting that to false. So now that I'm doing something in the synchronous path, I'm able to do something in the asynchronous path as well. So I'm going to add a new action. And I'm going to look up two of the dep options that we have in flows. So we can start a macro on a single record. And in this case, the context is always single records because it is a record triggered flow that is triggered on insert. But if we have any other flow that processes records in bulk, we can also start a macro by using the dep job. So that's going to be batch processed. For now, I'm using this one, and we can then configure the action, and the label is going to be summarize the case. And flow name and version, you can, it's for your own reference, put in a version number. It's going to be in the metadata on the audit log as well. Then we have to put in the macro API name. Well, that's going to be macro summarize case, the one that we just created. And eventually we have to decide which record is going to be processed. Well, I'm going to use the record that is currently flowing through the flow. And I'm going to look up its ID, which is going to be the case ID, this one. And then I click done. So that's basically the only thing you have to do. You can now save this flow and activate it, and it will now run on every case insert. It will call the summarize case prompt. It will call it to the OpenAI API, and it will store the response in the case summary field, which is on the case object. So it's basically as simple as that. So I think it is interesting to maybe, before we jump into some questions, because I'm sure there are many, look at the prompts that I've created for making sure that ChatGPT answers in the correct form. So if we look at the case, you can see that this is simply a large text area, right? So we can accept any response from GPT. But for department is a select list with closed off values. So the response that I need from ChatGPT has to be any of these values. Because if we now go into the cases list view, you can see that we got one from sales, one for support, and one for other. Then if we go into the individual queues, or for example, sales, you can see that because we know for what department this goes has to be or is for, we can make segmentations based on it. So it's really nice. So looking at the prompt that we then use, and this is something that you can do as well. You can build it up like this. So we receive the following customer case. We're gonna give it the subject. We're gonna give it the description with the field variables. And I'm asking it to please analyze the case. I'm saying, please, you have to be nice, of course, to a robot. And choose one of the following departments that is most suitable for handling this case. And these are the options that are in my closed off select list. And this sentence is going to be really important then. So your response will be limited to picking one of these departments. For example, your response could be customer success, and do not reply with any words or characters. And if you build a very strict prompt like this, you will enforce and limit the response of ChatGPT, and it will always answer exactly the thing that you're looking for, and therefore you can use it in, for example, a select list. Looking at the priority prompt, so we ask ChatGPT to decide the priority low, medium, high based on the following prompt. So I'm feeding it the subject and description again. I'm feeding it the options that it can choose between. I'm saying that it is limited to picking one of these options, so it's not able to reply with anything else. And to give it some context, the priority should be set to low for non-urgent issues that don't impact core operations, medium for issues that may have a moderate impact or are time sensitive but not critical, and high for urgent matters that directly impact key operations or pose immediate risk to the organizations. And if you remember, we put in 3 cases, and one of them was indeed urgent, so it set the urgency high. One of them was medium, and the other one was low because it was that spam message that it identified as spam. So that's less prompt spam detection, and it's actually as simple as that, but it's really powerful because I think AI is best capable of detecting if something is spam. And with a prompt like this, you can enforce it to do exactly that. So analyze the following customer case text and determine if it's potentially a spam message. Respond with yes if it appears to be spam, or no if it seems genuine. Do not respond with any other words or characters. And I'm feeding the subject and the description. And as a result, you can see that all the responses fit within my data architecture within the fields that I'm using, and therefore I can get exactly the things out of it that I want to get out of this. I think that's basically what we wanted to show, Nicola. Shall I give the screen back to you, or shall we wait? Maybe we can, depending on the questions, show something in Salesforce here and there.
Sure, yeah, you can pass me the screen. And in the meantime, we can also get into the Q&A session and launch our second poll. And at the same time, we can also tackle all the questions that came in the middle, right? So it's a poll time number 2. And as you have seen, like Adapt is bringing you into your Salesforce Endless capabilities to boost your data-driven activities. So can you pick maybe any of the outputs that you see relevant for your organization? Of course, you can choose even more than one. And meanwhile, the poll is going on. We can start to tackle some of the questions that arrive in previously. So Boria is asking us, if you set use the case summary as a rich text field, will it also be displayed with rich text as ChatGPT can create HTML?
Yeah, I don't think via the API that it will respond with HTML, so that you can use a rich text over there. So as far as I know, it's limited to simply returning text. But I'm sure in future implementations and future versions of OpenAI's API that this will be a possibility. Maybe it is now, but I'm not sure, to be honest. But I don't think so. I think it's limited to text response at the moment. Yeah.
All right. Then we have another question from Massimiliano asking, the integration with ChatGPT is interesting. Will it be used also in duplicate check to increase the reliability and precision in the data matching?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're definitely investigating ways of implementing AI in duplicate detection and matching and machine learning kind of possibilities. So that's definitely something that is top of mind in our product team over here. It's too soon to tell something about this right now, but it's definitely something that we're working on a daily basis to see if there is a chance for us. Yeah.
All right. Then we have a few more questions also from the chat. Let me get back to Eric was asking how this compares to Einstein article recommendation.
Einstein article recommendation. If I'm honest, I'm not familiar with it, so I cannot answer that question. But yeah, if you're interested in it, we'd be happy to get back to you after the webinar and do some digging on that.
All right. Yeah, feel free to contact us like even during the session or maybe right after the session on our website pop-up. We have like a chat bot that you can actually talk. It's not an actual AI, is not a bot, but it's actually our colleagues like waiting for your answer and also to schedule your demo as well if you would like to discover more about it. Question from Stefan is, so if no data is used from our own platform, you cannot, for example, assign it to HR for a credit case. Should the business rule be this exceptional for your org? Because it says this ChatGPT will probably assign it to finance.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if I understand your question or if there even is a question in there. Do you know, Nicola? What these, or Stefan, maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
I believe it was related to the fact that you were calling information coming into your Salesforce instance, and in this case, like Stefan is asking, like if you cannot, for example, assign it to HR because the data is not used from your own platform. So probably like about those fields on the pick list, or maybe Stefan, if you want to dig deeper a little bit and give us more context, feel free to shoot another comment in the chat.
Cool.
We have one more question from Boria asking, and how is this based on permission sets? I believe that you showcased it before, right? So it was mostly per action, per user, per execution method. You want to share again?
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't have to share necessarily. So I think the current assignment system from Data Action Platform is based on users or on profiles. So we cannot give access to an action based on permission sets. We can give access to certain parts of Data Action Platform based on permission sets, but then it's limited to pages, for example, or parts of duplicate check like the action launcher or the setup. So we can perfectly arrange that via permission sets. but action access is based on users or based on profiles.
All right. So yes, indeed, like Boria was also adding more context. So with regard to permission to execute the actions, you can you provide access based on permission set? So I guess we answered that. Eric
and Eric is indeed now saying he's embedding profiles indeed. So that's why we built the user version. So you can decide per user who has access to what. We're currently looking in more versatile ways of doing action assignments as well. But based on users, you now have the full flexibility of deciding who has access to what. But I can indeed imagine if you're not working with profiles that it takes some time to set up. So more flexibility there, would definitely be interesting.
All right, we got Stefan back. So he says, for example, all our case in Salesforce concerning credit problems are assigned to HR. I know, strange rule. Well, it's never strange, Stefan. But if you want to use if we want to use ChatGPT to automate it, it will use the common rules of organization worldwide, which will be finance then. If ChatGPT would use our case data, it will be okay.
Yeah. Now I understand where you're coming from. So indeed, if you do not write a very strict prompt and simply ask it to interpret a case and to decide one of these departments, like the prompt that I wrote, then indeed it could be, and it will probably assign that case to finance. But of course, you can shape a prompt yourself, and you can give it very strict instructions that in this case, if the case is related to credit problems, that it should assign it to HR. So you can simply shape your prompt and make sure that ChatGPT makes the decisions you want it to make. And on the other hand, you can let it decide yourself. So based on writing a prompt and the strictness of your prompt, you can enforce that basically. And that's very well possible. It's not that difficult.
And then Boria is finally asking also, I saw an Apex class in the flow you created. Every action you create is creating an Apex class?
No, the Apex class that we use in the flow is simply used for kicking off one of the macros you decided. So we have indeed an Apex class which we use in the flow, which is triggering a macro. So it's not true that we create an Apex class for every action. It's one Apex class which we use in the flow to execute macros.
All right. I see no more question coming in. Maybe we can have a look at the poll results. So we do see, of course, that there's like a very high request on summarizing anything. That use case, it was actually pretty impressive for our attendees, and also enriching the data. So having asking ChatGPT to check various data points from records and filling missing information, also with the source, which is of course the open web, right? And of course, like if you have any of the specific thoughts that you had in mind that you want to also share with us or discover with us, feel free to reach us. Our team is waiting to chat with you via our website extension, or feel free to contact us at plauti.com/contact, and you can grab the link into the chat box here as we're speaking. And of course, shall you also be interested in getting started with the Plauti? We have, of course, like the direct link to our free trials for Plauti Data Management Suite, applicant check, record validation, and data action platform. I'm dropping here on the chat as well the links to get starting now. And of course, you can also either search us on the App Exchange or G2, or even contact us from our website. And lastly, I would like to, of course, thank you all for watching. Should you have any more questions, feel free to reach out at any time. We'll be happy to answer you. And thanks again for watching us. Until next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.